Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Michael, and for the first time in 93 episodes, I'm not joined by Joshua Mervell, but thankfully, Bex Luther is here. Hello, Beck.
Hey, it's your boy. I'm still here. I got nothing going on. I'll be here every day until I'm dead.
And you're vaccinated, right? So you can join the vaccinated club. So we are allowed to, well, maybe hang out one day again.
One day. Oh my god. I could see your face in person.
Mm-hmm. It would be nice. Anyway, and also we have a special guest this week, a fellow podcaster, Andrew Helmer, aka Barry. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yay!
And yes, and for those that don't know, you are a co-host of That Was a Show, right?
I am. It's a podcast about all your favorite 80s and 90s terrible canceled shows. Shows that didn't make it, failed or forgotten wonders, we say.
And I must admit, I haven't listened to it, but I do see your posts on Instagram.
I'm good now. That sounds fascinating. I love 80s, 90s cartoons that nobody's ever heard of before.
Oh, they're all sitcoms. I wish it was cartoons.
Oh,
I wish.
never mind.
I wish. Oh, man. Maybe we'll do a spin-off or something.
Okay, I'm going to name 3 shows, and I want to know if you've reviewed them. Did you say they're only sitcoms?
They're only sitcoms, and most of them are one seasons, or just like less popular things that made it a couple years.
See, I was going to ask about Automan and Manimal, but those are not sitcoms, of course. So I will ask,
Manimal.
Manimal. I'm going to ask, have you reviewed Joni Loves Chachi?
Yes, we have. We have done Joni Loves Chachi.
Of
Yes.
course.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other 2 you obviously wouldn't have covered. So can you give us a sampling of some other ones you've done?
Oh, sure. We've done we've done we just finished we're just starting our second season, so I'm trying to think of I should know these off the top of my head. We did Aliens in the Family, which was a one season sitcom that was it involved the Jim Henson puppeteer company. It was a much less successful dinosaurs, except with aliens. It was basically about a blended family where half of them were, typical sitcom characters and the other half were alien puppets. Terrible. Just absolutely atrocious.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Wow.
Oh, man. we did Teen Angel. Remember Teen Angel?
Wow, I don't think I remember that. No.
It's like Teen Wolf, but like...
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm so interested.
We did... We did Muddlin' Through, which was Jennifer Aniston's show
debut.
That she was on. Basically, they were technically on the air while they were starting to shoot Frenz, but the show was so bad that essentially, like, they were pretty sure she was not going to have any conflicts.
Right? Yeah. Oh, she's like, which one should they go with? She kind of rolled the dice.
It's going to be canceled.
Yeah. And
I just Googled Aliens in the Family. Don't Google image search that. Oh my god. Why is it terrifying?
Traumatizing?
Yeah, there's there's a baby alien called Bobit in it. And he's definitely like a prototype to like what Stewie Griffin became, but he's like a megalomaniacal baby, but the character is so annoying. It's just hard to take.
Okay, do you guys remember, I mean, this lasted a while, but do you guys remember the sitcom Small Wonder?
I do.
Yeah, remember the girl was an alien, right? Like, there was a girl in the family. How did it work? Oh, wait, maybe I'm mixing up 2 shows. There was one where the girl was a robot, and there's another one where the girl was an alien, and her father was a light, right? That was like a crystal?
Yeah, that's...
I'm mixing up 2 shows, I think.
Yeah, because we covered that one. I must be really tired today. Out of this world.
Yes.
Out of this world. And the voice of the crystal was Burt Reynolds.
Get out of here, really?
No, I know. And he's like completely uncredited and like...
Wow. He's
phoning it in quite literally.
Right, yeah.
It lasted, I think, 3 or 4 seasons. We covered it. We ended up doing like episodes from each season. Oh, that was another rough one.
Wow. And here, Firefly lasted 1 year. But hey, those were different times, right? Anyway.
Yeah. We've now done more episodes of our podcast than Firefly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we will get to something Small Wonder level when we get to Secret Wars. But before we get to that, we are going to dive into Spider-Man here. Now, before we dive into these issues, Andrew, I know that you're a comic book reader because we went to Fan Expo with you, like, what was it, 5 years ago or something?
Come on, man. You know that was at least... It must have been 8 or 9 now.
No.
There's no way it was 5, because I would have been there.
It's time, man. Time.
That's depressing. It feels like a year ago.
Time is a flat circle, man.
Yeah.
Just like the Earth.
I think... Jeez. I'm trying to think what we would have... Yeah, who knows?
I remember that was in my Valiant phase, so that was like 2000... Oh, geez. It was probably 2000...
I want to say like 14.
14 or something? I don't know.
I was living in Lonsdale with Sean and Jared. So, like, that was a while ago.
Oh, geez. Wow. I was being generous with 5 years, but anyway,
so yeah, I'm a comic book guy. I mean, there's just a giant shelf going
There's just
on
a couple.
back there. Yeah.
Nice. So when obviously you're younger than I am, but did you ever read any 80s Spidey or any Spidey?
I've read a fair bit of Spidey, not a lot of 80s Spidey, actually.
Okay.
And I was pretty excited to kind of get into this. It was, I read I was going to be on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And I read those comics and I had to drop out at the last minute. So that was my first 80s Spidey. I mean, I've read some of the classic arcs and stuff like that. Like like Death of Gwen Stacy and all that. And like,
sure. Okay.
That would have been late 70s, I think.
That's like early 70s actually. Yeah.
Early 70s. Yeah. So this is cool. It was really funny to see the continuing, like, let's just keep shoving him in the black costume.
Back and forth.
Even though it's not the symbiote and it hasn't been in a long time. And always being like, oh no, my costume's really dirty. And you're just like, yeah, you've been pulling that shit for a while.
Right. Yep. That's true. I never thought about that, about the awkward ways they try to keep him in the black costume. You're right. It's like, yeah, there was one issue a while back where he bleached a long time ago. He bleached the colors. Then you're right. And then it smells like soot. And then he didn't shower.
Like soot. Yeah. Shower.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. Every issue we did this week, he made an excuse for.
Yeah.
Well, the
other
never
funny
for not
thing,
wearing the black suit though, but always just the red and blue one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly.
The black one's never in the wash.
Which was weird because he only wears the black one, so you would think it's dirty. But on the other hand, you can let it go longer. It doesn't show as much dirt like the red and blue does.
It's also funny because when we got to the black costume, I was so excited about it that it's like, oh, for the Spider-Cast, we changed the logo, we changed this, we changed that. It's the new era, and then it was over within 5 issues. And Jolie was like, wait, that's the black costume saga? I'm like, well, yes. He does keep wearing a black costume, but that was the black costume saga, technically. So, yeah, it was over pretty quick.
It comes back.
It must have infuriated them when they were just like, we did all this publicity on the new costume. We sold all this merchandise. You're putting him back in that costume.
I think that's what happened. Is they designed the toy, they introduced him. And if I don't know if you know this, but when the black costume was introduced in Amazing number 252, what happened was Spider-Man disappeared at the end of Amazing 251, and then came back in 252. But Secret Wars 1 to 12 happened in between those 2 issues, so you did not know what happened. So when all the superheroes came back, they were all different. Like Spider-Man had a new costume. The Thing was no longer in the Fantastic Four. Kitty Pryde and Colossus broke up, blah, 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 right? So what happened was they had Spider-Man in the black costume, but they got cold feet. So then after maybe 5 or 6 issues, they put him back in the red and blue. But the issue to explain how he got it hadn't come out yet. And by the time it came out, everyone loved the black costume. So like, now we got to figure out a way to keep him in the black costume. So that's when they came up with the cloth one.
Like,
so.
it's a great design. Like,
I love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everybody does.
True. I think it's the most popular, like, alternate costume for any superhero.
I still think they could have just been like, oh, this is Spidey's stealth suit.
Right. For like night missions or something.
Yeah.
Right?
And they did that in Far From Home. Far From Home? The second MCU one.
Right.
That was his stealth suit, and that looked pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Black Cat's like, here you go, this is for when we're doing stuff at night and you don't want to be recognized. And then he could be in every issue be like, I should probably grab the black suit. I gotta be sneaky for this one. Like, that's it. That's all you gotta do.
Right. Okay, so now...
Hire me, Marvel. I'll fix all your 80s problems. All of them.
Instead of it just executives being like, what if he spills coffee on his thing right off the bat?
Pardon me. So the other thing about these issues, as you know, is they usually, unfortunately, these are all kind of like part 2, part 9, but we'll make do. So I hope that you weren't too confused, but we're actually, because Josh and Jolie are not here, Andrew's actually going to do the first summary this week, right? You're going to give us a brief plot summary of Web of Spider-Man and number 12. So you can just tell the listeners basically what happened.
Yes, I will do so. So Web of Spider...
As you're loading it, would you like me to talk about the cover? So the cover...
yes, please talk about the cover.
Okay, so Web of Spider-Man number 12. It's a cool cover. We got Mary Jane coming into her apartment, and behind a door, there's a gunman, and Spider-Man is crawling towards the window, kind of unbeknownst to what's going on. And we got this you want to talk about word bubbles on a cover here. We got this giant, Peter Parker, hope you're not asleep, Tiger, because mesmerizing Mary Jane's going to drag you out of your room and make you have some fun tonight, even if it kills me. I think it's a good cover. It's a little bit awkward, like how stretched out it is, but I think it's pretty cool. Becca, what do you think of it?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, the guy holding the gun looks nothing like the guy who's holding the gun in the issue, but whatever.
No, I like going in. I thought it was Frank Castle. Right. All the coloring is right for it and all that, but it was. It does not look like. It looks like a mix of the Hitman and his nephew or whatever. It looks like they amalgamated them into one character on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cool cover though. I don't really think that's Mary Jane's goal in the actual issue.
Yeah, it's a bit misleading.
So yeah, we'll get into the issue. Essentially, it picks up. I'm just gonna assume from the end of last week, and Peter has run afoul of some local street toughs, and they've completely destroyed and burned his apartment. So it kind of opens with Peter and MJ, standing in the ruins of his apartment, and Peter's going on and on about the old Parker luck, and he's having a real hard time, and he realized, or through talking to MJ, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go after these guys, and she's like, you can call the cops. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, a crime was committed. You can call the cops on them. And he's like, I guess I could. Mm-hmm. So he kind of starts thinking, all right, I'm gonna call the cops on these punks. And he goes after. He first has to find out who they are and all that. So he starts following them, and he's constantly trying to what's up with this? There's a tenant patrol in his building.
Yeah,
watching his comings and goings.
So basically, in the last issue, he witnessed these 3 hooligans trying to sexually assault this girl, but he didn't have time to change into Spidey, so he, as Peter Parker, beat them up. And so the people who live in the building were so inspired, they started this Peter Parker patrol to be kind of like a neighborhood watch. That's basically what that is.
Oh, okay. So that's both darker and lighter than I thought it was.
Yeah.
That really that really kind of colors my view of this entire issue. So these same street toughs assaulted somebody?
Yes, the three guys, yeah.
Almost.
They
were prevented from assaulting a woman.
Yeah.
They were prevented from assaulting a woman, and then okay. So that changes things a little. So basically, the issue is Parker's after these street toughs. These street toughs, are furious that they got beat up and somebody emasculated them or whatever. So one of them is like, I never quite, is it his uncle?
I think it's his older brother.
So one of this guy's name is Rico, and his older brother's name is Hector, and Hector is a hitman. Mm-hmm. So Rico goes to Hector and he's like, I want you to rub this guy off for us. What? Rub this guy out?
Is it rub him out? Rub him out.
I'm sorry, I'm 5.
So, at first Hector is like, no, I'm not going after this Spider-Man guy, because, Spider-Man's after them, and then they get arrested, and Hector changes his mind, and then they're out on bail, and then they have a change of heart about being fucking criminals.
Assassins, yeah.
Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They change their minds about being criminals, so they're trying to stop Hector from assassinating Spider-Man or Peter Parker. It becomes unclear because Hector just gets it in his head that, once he is gonna kill somebody, he's gonna kill somebody, and it doesn't matter who it is. Like, he's just like, I've been waiting too long in this apartment. The next person who comes in, I'm gonna kill.
Right.
And then they keep cutting back and forth, because Mary Jane's on her way to Peter's place because she can't get a hold of him, and then you're like, oh no, is this how Mary Jane dies in a random issue of Web of Spider-Man by a hitman character we've never met before? Is this it? And obviously Peter, Spidey shows up, beats him up, and then the cops come in, and Parker decides, these guys the street toughs warn him or whatever, and Parker decides, I'm gonna let these guys go. I'm gonna give them another chance. Which, being that I did not know about the attempted sexual assault, I was a little bit more all right with.
Right.
But now I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they should be in jail.
Yep.
And yeah, that's pretty much the issue.
Yes. So, let's jump over to Bex Luthor. Tell us, Bex, part 2. What'd you think of part 2?
I can't believe he let them go. I cannot believe it. Mm-hmm. And just so you know, that the woman when they're showing all those guys in the lineup, the woman that's also there, that's the victim of the sexual assault. Right. And she's there to point out her assaulters. And she is so traumatized by the fact that this happened to her that she runs out of the room and doesn't want anything to do with it because she doesn't want these people to come back and attack her again.
Right.
And he lets them go because, probably not too bad.
Boys will be boys.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Boys will be sexual predators, apparently.
Oh my god. That really colored things.
It changes it, eh? Because you read it and you're like, oh, what Peter's giving these guys a chance. They weren't too bad. They didn't want to kill him.
Yeah. I mean,
they just wanted to,
destroy his life and hire a hitman.
See, that's the thing is, the climax of the story, it makes, it's ruined by the fact that, again, if they would have gone back to the previous issue, because in the last issue, they also showed, they tried to humanize all three characters to show that, the one guy's abused, and the one guy's father is strict, and the one guy is this. So it's they tried to show all the dimensions of these characters, but it's like we said, they were attempting to rape this girl. They should be in jail.
Yeah.
So the ending is really weakened by the fact if that scene was not in the last issue, then you could be like, oh, Peter Parker, he's giving them another chance, right? But it just doesn't all add up. And now I should point out that is it the same writer? Yeah, it is the same writer. I think the last issue was Danny Fingeroth and this is Peter David. So maybe there's a little bit of disconnect, but at the same time, it's not like he couldn't have just called him on the phone and been like, what happened last issue? Like obviously.
So what these guys do?
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Exactly. So, okay. But let's just talk about the rest of the issue. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the art. It's a little bit of an art. It's, no, actually, I was going to say an odd art team, but it's not. It's Sal Buscema on breakdowns and Bob McLeod on inks. And they work together on New Mutants. And I'm a huge fan of both of them. Andrew, I know you're not, overly familiar with 80s comics, but what did you think of the art?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Like it was a very, you're starting to see like the really, the kind of the genesis of modern style art. And a lot of heavy shadows, a lot of emphasis on like shot composition and all that. And like, yeah, really out of the 3.25 things we read today, like this is my favorite of the art.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. Becca, what did you think?
Yeah, no, it's very visually striking. The way that like Peter's apartment is just destroyed by all the smoke damage. I like when Mary Jane writes her name in the soot in the wall. Like I think that's a nice little detail. Yeah. Everyone's characters are very like the three thugs. You can tell them apart, which is always my thing of like, are these background characters their own character, or are they just fill-in stand-in regular guy?
Yep.
And it's like you could tell that Reno and his brother are brothers, but they both are their own character. So yeah, that kind of stuff is great. And then everything with the bugle, with like Jonah and Robbie getting angry at each other, really like that too.
Yeah.
Just sucks that it was this issue.
Yeah.
It looks so pretty.
Well, I think that's one reason that I can read so many 80s comics, even if the stories are bad, because usually the art can save it, and I can just enjoy it for the art, I find that a lot anyway. I think that on average, I think everyone in the world, even if they hate comics, will usually, or totally disrespect comics, will usually admit that the art is good or better than the stories. So in this case, I think that's probably true. The other thing I want to point out, because I did like the issue. I thought some of the dialogue was really good. But the other thing I liked about this issue was the way that they were jumping back and forth, especially in the last third, right? When Spider-Man was kind of... it was a little bit awkward when he captured the thieves and then he ran around trying to figure out who they ripped off. That scene didn't work. But the whole part of like cutting back and forth between Spider-Man in his apartment, then the assassin on the roof, and Mary Jane on the phone, not only was it really well done, but the artwork really sold it, right? Because the art had to tell the full story in only one panel. So Mary Jane, like if you go to Digital 19, Mary Jane is riding a subway, the guy is waiting in the apartment, Spider-Man is thinking about what to do, and we see the hooligans in the background, and that's all like really straightforward storytelling. Like again, the bottom of the page, the guy's waiting, Mary Jane's coming up from the subway, and it's just... Sal Buscema is one of the masters, and I think he shows it here. So I think he really makes that work, especially the ending.
And it's funny, though, because I also really like that sequence, and I was just like, man, I really wish they would just sort of let this be told visually, because, like, it's still an 80s comic, so they're like, oh, is there an inch of space? Make sure you put, like, a thought bubble in it. So like Mary Jane, she's on the subway and is essentially like explaining what a subway is to those of us out there who don't realize that she's like, oh, this crosstown's taken a long time. It usually doesn't take this long. And I'm like, yeah, you're on a subway, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. If you just look at this page, you could take away all the dialogue and you'd know exactly what's happening. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. You get paid by, I think you're getting paid by the word at that point as a writer.
So yeah, and here's the thing is, Becca, you mentioned Mary Jane writing her name in like the soot or whatever. I want to know, Andrew, did the dialogue stand out at all? Because Peter David is still writing today. He's a fairly modern writer. Like, did any of the dialogue stand out to you?
Yeah, I thought so. I really liked the dynamic between Peter and MJ in this. I'm obviously, this seems to be one of their off again periods. But it's interesting because through dialogue, especially MJ, he seems to write MJ really well, which is kind of rare sometimes in these days. I found like a lot of their back and forth was good, and the dialogue showed a lot of pathos and stuff like that, and more sparing than especially the other issues of what we read today. Like the dialogue was a little bit more sparse in a way that works.
Right. And also kind of self-aware, like, there's a lot of good writers in the 80s, but like this exchange here when Peter's like, it took me years to get all this stuff, Mary Jane. And I can remember the exact circumstances around each one. And Mary Jane, really? I always thought you furnished it all during one lost drunken weekend. Just kidding, Pete. Like you'd never see that in one of the other books. Like, oh, that was great.
Yeah.
Becca, I know that you didn't like a lot of aspects of it, but was there anything about the writing you did like?
No, I did like the writing. Like, I thought it was well written. I just can't recommend a book that's so flippant about something so serious.
Right.
And I understand it is a product of its time, but it was still bad then, and it's bad now. It just ticked me off so much that they could have just made it robbing her, but no.
Right.
Like, they made it so that they were doing an irredeemable act.
Right.
That's as soon as you said it, I was like, why didn't they just have them mug her?
Right.
Everybody was stealing everybody's purses in comics in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just Peter just lets them, and they purposefully go back to show the woman that was assaulted and how scared she still is, and Peter still lets these men go back on the streets. What happens when she walks by and those guys walk by? She's going to be terrified.
Right.
Way to be a hero, Peter.
Yeah.
It just leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
No, I agree 100% on that. Especially like you guys got to see me learn that in real time. I was just like, I already didn't like it. And now it just really kind of pisses me off because, I mean, I was already a little miffed at the treatment of the woman in general. I was just like, just kind of the way they were writing, her anguish and stuff like that was falling back on some pretty stereotypical like Asian tropiness, and I was just like, come on. But now, I think it's unforgivable.
Right.
And like, there's even the woman. Sorry, Mike.
No problem.
There's the woman who's she's like the DA, and Peter's like, I don't want to press charges on these guys, and then she's like, what? They still assaulted a woman. Okay, like she's visibly upset that he's not going to press charges. It's like, they set your apartment on fire. They did a crime.
They hired a hitman.
Yeah,
like
they are bad people.
Yeah, it's not like they were just like, they changed their minds and didn't kill you at the last second. Okay, cool. Still almost did though. Still hired a guy. Still like did all these crimes. Still need to go to court, serve some time. Some community service? I don't know.
Right.
It doesn't feel like justice served.
I do want to point out one other thing. This has already been mentioned, but I really did like the scene in the Daily Bugle between J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson. I thought that was good. The characterization between the two, and Catherine Cushing, I thought that was great. We kind of touched on it briefly, but I just wanted to say that was a really good scene.
Yeah, it's the tension between them is just palpable, and it was really interesting.
Right, and I think J. Jonah Jameson is really interesting during this time because he's not. What is it? He's the publisher, but he's not the editor-in-chief. So there's a little bit more of a power play between him and Robbie, which I think is great. So anyway, I like that. So overall, as usual, because it's Peter David and I love Peter David, I will definitely recommend this issue. And I love the art. There's a big problem with the plot, but other than that, I still think it's good. Andrew, what about you? Would you recommend this issue?
I would recommend this issue in a way that I read it, which was having no concept of what came before it.
Gotcha.
because I liked it overall, but it have re-examined my relationship with it since we started talking. So yeah, I guess
With reservation.
It's a soft recommend. It's a recommend on the merits of its art and some of the dialogue, but not on its flippant treatment of sexual assault.
Gotcha. All right, Bex Luthor.
Yep, same thing. Same thing as last week.
Okay.
If you honestly though, reading it on its own would probably be way better. Like without the context. Sometimes you just don't want the context. Sometimes it's just like, 3 young thugs and they're on the wrong side of the law, and you know what? Peter's giving them a second chance. That's great. We're not going to talk about what law was broken.
Right.
Ignore it. I do have a continuity question, though.
Sure.
And I'm upset at myself for bringing it up. Where's the notebook?
It just wasn't referenced, but it's probably in there somewhere, right?
Because, like, they burned down his apartment. He has a solid gold notebook from earlier in, like, some Secret Wars garbage bullshit.
Yeah, the Beyond.
And he's been talking about the solid gold notebook for, like, 8 issues in every Spider-Man run. This is, like, the first time he hasn't brought it up.
That's a good point.
In his charter apartment where he lost everything?
And you think
and it's
he would.
solid gold.
You would think if it survived, it would be the only thing that he would, you know. I mean, his blue and his red and blue was fine. They could have burned the costume.
Yeah.
They could have burned the costume and they could have gotten off. They could have made a meal out of that for weeks. Been like, he's got to wear his black costume. The other one got burned, but no.
Good point.
No, it was still just dirty.
Yep. Nope. It's just too much soot, so I gotta wear my black costume. Even though the soot would make it the black costume. That would have been cool. Oh, the soot dyed my red and blue costume black. Now I've got
there
2
you
black.
Go. A third
Spidey
explanation
costumes.
for why it's black, yeah.
I mean, I'm not mad that they didn't bring up the notebook, but I'm kind of mad because this is the one time it would make sense.
Yeah, and it is a plot hole. You're right, because of all the things he should have been concerned about, it should have been that. You're right.
The solid gold notebook in his apartment that was just burned down by thugs. I don't know what the melting temperature of gold is, but it's probably not the same as his wooden coffee table.
Right. Good point.
It just is. It's weird considering how Secret Wars tie in everything else is right now. Just wanted to point it out.
All right, so on that note, we're going to move on to Amazing Spider-Man. Wait, where'd it go? Uh-oh. 274, which is another Secret Wars tie-in.
They even say so at the top.
Yep, Secret Wars 2 continues in this issue, and Bex Luthor, you're going to tell us about this one.
I hate Secret Wars. So this issue starts with the Puma going back to his people and being like, hey, couldn't kill the Beyonder. Turns out pretty powerful, and I am a Catman. And then we're just immediately not talking about Puma ever again. We just go back to the Beyonder, and he's still contemplating whether or not he wants to destroy all existence or not. And Mephisto is there because Mephisto is the conflict of Secret Wars 2? Not sure. Never really pinpointed the conflict of it. But he's there, and he doesn't want the Beyonder to destroy all existence because, 1, that would include him, and 2, he's in love with Death, so you gotta save Lady Death. So they decide that they're going to... Everybody's in love with Death.
Wait, is he? Mephisto? Or is he just...
No, he is because he was, like, mortified when Beyonder gets rid of Death. Like, he just abolishes Death.
Okay.
And so he's, like, heartbroken that Death is gone. So then Beyonder brings Death back, and he's like, oh, yay, Death. And obviously she doesn't care because she never cares about the men who love her, which is great. Girl power. But yeah, so in this issue, then the Beyonder and Mephisto decide to get champions for one another to fight.
Right.
Kind of. To prove, to give the Earth, or to give the universe a 24 hours more before the Beyonder decides to destroy it or not. It's very unclear. So, the Beyonder chooses... really confused about whose champion is who. I think they're chosen for each other or something.
Beyonder chooses Zarathos, which is the original spirit that possessed Ghost Rider.
Yeah, it's the vengeance spirit, right?
Right.
And then also Spider-Man is the other one.
So, which is Mephisto's.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this guy likes Spider-Man. I'm gonna pick Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So then they decide to fight, and the idea is that Peter's sense of responsibility will be so strong that it will prove that humanity has value? Maybe?
Andrew, I had a hard time following that. Did you? Because I could not remember what they were supposed to do to win. Was it just us?
No, I'm along. I'm along for the ride on that. I was just like, he just keeps kind of like pushing him, and then he is fine, and then at the end they're like, never mind.
Right. I didn't quite get what they were trying to prove, but anyway.
So the idea was, if Peter's sense of responsibility is so vast that he will have to stop a sniper from killing the Kingpin, or the Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance will make him not be responsible so that he won't do that. Sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no, this is just a disgusting comic.
Oh, I thought it was because of the shot. Okay, go ahead.
No.
Okay, the vaccination.
The shot. Oh, I didn't take any shots today. What are you talking
the vaccination.
About? Yeah. No, I'm good.
I also was like, shots?
Yeah.
Sure. You know what? Why not? Maybe I would have liked it better. But then, so we cut back from hell or whatever dimension we're in, and Nathan is still in the hospital from a previous mugging attempt or whatever, because Aunt May's boyfriend, who's in a wheelchair, went into a side alley with a bunch of people that he owes money to, and they beat him up. And he's still in the hospital, but they're talking about how he'll probably get out for Christmas. So that's cool. Mary Jane shows up to take Aunt May and her own aunt out for lunch, and Peter's like, I can't make it, I got work, and immediately goes into Spider-Man mode because he has to actually take pictures, but as Spider-Man, because there's like some drug bust or whatever. So he's stopping that, and then all of a sudden the Spirit of Vengeance shows up in the middle of New York, just huge. And Peter's like, whoa, what is this? It's just a big skull, and it disappears, because obviously he's the only one who could see it. And then he gives him a bunch of hallucinations, like the Green Goblin shows up, and all that jazz, and they're just trying to convince him to give up his responsibility to save Kingpin, because why would you do this, Peter? There's no point. Like, nobody cares about the stuff you do for them, blah, blah. He has a nightmare about his dead parents, because this is apparently a Batman issue all of a sudden. And then he ends up trying to save Kingpin after some more hallucinations. I'm like, how many hallucinations do you have? Captain Stacy was there. Gwen Stacy was there. She turned into an angel. And then the time's ticking down, and it turns out that he didn't even need to save Kingpin, because Kingpin had millions of security guards that he paid to prevent a sniper assassination. And then the Beyonder's like, well, enjoy your 24 hours, and then pieces out. Secret Wars ruins, it taints everything.
The
end.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah. I'll just say that I think that this issue wanted to be a classic Spider-Man story, and I mean, the fact that they had John Romita Sr. ink the cover, and it looks like a classic cover, and there's all these guest inkers doing it. I think they were going for almost like, well, it's clearly inspired by the Book of Job from the Bible, but also it kind of reminds me of like it's a Wonderful Life type thing.
Clearly?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, well, I thought only because Book of Job is referenced in so many movies, I eventually read it, and I'm like, I have to read what this book is all about. But anyway, and the Boyles gave it away.
Whenever Catholics are like, oh yeah, this was clearly a Bible reference, I go, sure. Whatever you say,
okay.
man.
But I only know this because I've seen Mission Impossible 1. But anyway,
I was like, the only thing I know about Jim is fucking Mission Impossible.
There you go. That's why I read it.
The first Mission Impossible.
Yep. But yeah, and and also like It's a Wonderful Life, where not necessarily It's a Wonderful Life, but like all these visions, like it's something that type of movie would do. Not necessarily It's a Wonderful Life, but that type of like it's it's a little bit Christmas themed, and you know what I mean.
I got it. Yeah, for sure.
But for me, didn't quite work. Andrew, what do you think?
It's kind of like a it's like a let's play the hits of all of Parker's like
greatest hits
sadness. So yeah, you get all the greats. You get Gwen Stacy falling, including a really like Peter being like, "Oh no, Gwen, the only woman I've ever loved," and I'm like, "Geez, I'm glad Mary Jane can't read these." And then like Captain, even bringing Captain Stacy in it, bringing Uncle Ben into it, of course, Uncle Ben into it. I had the same thought when his parents showed up. I was like, "Oh, this is definitely just a Batman hallucinogen." And I was like, somebody should look for the Scarecrow. This is definitely his doing. Elements of it worked, but like, it just kind of felt like a weird, like, let's play the hits issue in the middle.
What about like Gwen Stacy turning into a bird with a woman's head? And then what was that guy's name? The Ravager of Souls. He looked ridiculous.
The Ravager turned into Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
My favorite is when... So that's the Spirit of Vengeance that showed up at the beginning, right? So my favorite in the entire issue was when the giant head of Spirit of Vengeance shows up and just like screams at him. He's like, "You idiot! These people are going to die." And then Peter goes, "Oh, no one else saw that?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're like, no shit, man. Like, and then he gets boils, which is sort of like a throwaway issue, and he gets really sick. They just keep throwing all these complications, and I'm like, if you're testing Parker, isn't the complication of will he save Kingpin enough? Good point. Like, if you're really testing Spider-Man and you're like, will he do this thing that he knows is probably a little bit wrong? Why are you like throwing all these like weird like obstacles in his route to do that?
Good
point.
They're
like, well, let's see if he really wants to do it. It was weird.
And here's the thing: is I do like Kingpin, but I'm really sick of this invincible Kingpin that knows everything that's going on in every corner of the city, and nothing happens without his knowledge. I actually prefer the Netflix TV show version, right? The Daredevil TV show, where they kind of made him like, no, he has flaws, he makes mistakes, he's not, all-knowing and omniscient. So that was one irritating thing too. But it's like you said, Becca, like, well, he's going to get assassinated, but he already knew he was going to get assassinated. So it's like, oh, so what was the point of this? Like, I don't know.
It's just Peter Parker's worst day. Like, this issue, like, poor boy needs some therapy. Like, what therapist is in the Marvel Universe? I feel every horrible moment in his life was relived. He got boils. He almost passed out on the street. He had to fight a giant skeleton monster that nobody else could see. And then he finally managed to do the right thing, and it didn't matter at all. Like, can we stop toying with my boy Pete? I feel... Poor guy. I feel so bad.
He kind of shrugs it off too. Like all this weird, all these weird visions happen, and he isn't even like, "What's going on?"
Right.
He's just like, I must really have the flu.
He's so traumatized that it's all internalized.
That's true.
Also,
this is a Tuesday for him.
When he sees Zarathos, and then he's like, he's gone, vanished. It was like he was never really there. And then he looks down at the street, which, by the way, is 100 feet below. And he's like, I don't get it. No one on the street seems to have noticed anything out of the ordinary. Wouldn't it have been more effective to show him like down on the street and had just passerbys just not noticing, right? So that doesn't really sell it. And even if they did notice, it doesn't affect how the scene played out, So I just thought that was a waste of space, that whole scene. I don't know.
Yeah, I think divisions would have been enough on their own. I don't think you had to have Arathos like just show up. It was silly. It
Right.
seemed silly. It came off as silly. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about the art. So the art was laid out by Ron Frenz, but it was inked by a whole bunch of different people. So the art style does change throughout the issue. But Andrew, what was your impression of the art here?
It was all right. Nothing really jumped out at me, to be honest. It was all pretty standard, kind of like what I think about when I think of this era. There was definitely like you could see like echoes of like Romita. Like you could tell what they were going for, which is like why when you said like you can tell they're trying to make this like a classic issue. I felt like the art was trying to like kind of invoke that, but it didn't make it any more like interesting.
Yeah, like I think it says at the beginning he did do some of the finishes. So I think if you go to Digital 14, which is the one where the Green Goblin shows up, I think that actually is John Romita Sr. inking for those two pages. So yeah, like Norman Osborn's face, that looks like a John Romita Sr. face, so you can kind of tell there. But I mean, he's the ultimate Spider-Man artist, and the art suddenly becomes so like polished, and then when you jump to the next inker, it becomes sloppy again, So the difference is really noticeable, I think. Becca, what did you think of the art?
Yeah, no, same thing. It's when they have so many inkers in one issue, it can make it feel like more jumbled. Like it's not as smooth to read too. And then I was like, oh, the Green Goblin looks so sick here. And then I'm like, why does Mephisto look like garbage?
Right.
You're literally drawing the devil in hell. It should be cool. Like there's a giant skeleton monster.
Right.
It should be cool. But instead it looks like the kind of skeleton that a 6th grader would draw on his backpack. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like they're in hell, but it's just an orange background. Like that sucks.
It's like
go ahead.
It's like the Saturday morning cartoon version of hell. Yeah.
Yeah, and even I forget which page it's on. I think it's early on when he's drawing like this swarm of demons and like how pissed they are at Mephisto, and they're just like orcs from Lord of the Rings. I'm like, come on, you're individually drawing all these demons. You might as well make them interesting.
Get creative, right?
It's unfortunate. I do like how the entire thing is solved when Peter punches the big skull.
Yeah.
This is like the second time in a little bit that he's like solved. Like I think it was when he was fighting Firelord.
Yeah,
he was like the whole issue. He's like, how am I going to defeat this amazing celestial being? And then he just decks him and knocks him out.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I guess I'm strong. So then he does it again, and he punches the Spirit of Vengeance and works. So like maybe he should just
don't mess with the classic.
You should just go for that. Yeah, art's okay. Beyonder is such a boring to look at character. Like,
yep.
You really gonna make your amazing, all-powerful, all-knowing being just a white guy in a white suit? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, his design is just very milquetoast.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume, forgive me for not right. So these all probably came out, these have been in the same month, right?
Yeah, this is all March
issues?
1986, yeah.
Right. So you can kind of see, like, this is a real, especially this issue, like, it just feels like an assembly line a little bit, Like,
yeah, and there's a lot of fill-ins. Like, if you look at this era, there are so many fill-ins, but they just wanted to get them out on time. So they're like, okay, we need an issue by this Thursday. Somebody come up with something, and like this issue is like 20 guys just filling in on the art, and sometimes they have leftover stories from Marvel Team Up. They just put them out, but yeah, it's an inconsistent era for sure. So
I would say out of the three, this is my least favorite.
Yeah, I'm going to say, you know what? This issue was not bad, but I am in no rush to ever read it again, so I cannot really recommend this issue. Andrew, you feel the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bex Luthor, what do you think?
Yeah, no, same thing. Honestly, if this was like just the Spirit of Vengeance fucking with Peter Parker, I could get behind that. I think that could be cool. And like you said, it could have been a classic issue of Spidey. There's just too much jumbled in. Like, don't forget the Puma's here. Also, Mephisto and Beyonder are fighting in hell. Also, like this. Also this. Like, if we're gonna have a Peter Parker's life-centric issue, just make it about that. A lot of stuff has happened to him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too clustery. Yeah.
Yeah. Opening with 2 pages of Puma was a mistake.
Yeah, and that goes nowhere, but whatever. What are you going to do? They're just setting up a future story. So yeah, definitely a mixed bag. Amazing Spider-Man again. It's the flagship book, but it's kind of uneven in quality. And this issue was really no better. So now we're going to move on to my favorite issue. And this is a story that they've actually been dropping hints about this story for a few issues, and Jolie kept asking about it. So it's unfortunate she's not going to find out how it turns out. But we've been seeing little subplots where Santa Claus will be like just breaking into kids' houses and stealing stuff from them. So, and Jolie's like, what the hell is this? So anyway, this is the culmination of that little subplot. So Peter Parker number 112. This is written by Peter David and drawn by Mark Beachum. And I can't remember who did the inks, but we'll talk about that at the end. But we start out here with a guy who has just ripped off somebody's, is it a purse?
A Christmas present.
It's a Christmas present. And he's like running down an alley, and then he gets stopped by Spider-Man. And Spider-Man basically leaves him stuck in his web. And then, funny enough, echoing the other issue, also by Peter David, the girl comes and ends up forgiving the guy, lets him get away. But the same guy that she just forgave rips off her watch. And we see the cop kind of smiling. Because just before that, he's like, are you kidding me? You're going to let this guy go? And he's like, hey, you got what you deserve. Too bad, right? So yeah, she lost her watch too. So anyway, then we cut over to Peter Parker. And he's going Christmas shopping. And he runs into, what's her name?
Joy.
And of course, gets a Christmas smooch under the mistletoe. And basically, the running subplot of this issue is that Peter Parker doesn't really have anything to do for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So he ends up calling Aunt May, and kind of an awkward conversation where she can't really hear him and he doesn't really understand her. And so he basically is like, oh, you got plans? Okay, you know what? I don't want to bother you, so I'm not going to come over. And she's like, wow, I didn't even get a chance to invite him over. So then he goes to the Daily Bugle and he sees Robbie Robertson. And he's kind of like implying that he's looking for something to do. And then he disappears just as he's like, hey, Pete, how about you come and join us for dinner? But Peter's already swung away out the window, right? So there's another missed opportunity. Then he goes to, then we cut over to this teacher. And I think this is another subplot that's coming in a few issues, but this teacher has got a student, and he's hinting that he's going to be investigating or pressing charges against this abusive father. And the father basically implies that if he tries to do anything, he's going to accuse this teacher of being like a child molester, basically, and just ruin his name, right? And so that subplot will come back in a few issues because I know because I read it. And then
thank God.
Yeah. So anyway, then we.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So then we cut over to. So this is another running subplot. Peter Parker, for about a year now, has had these 3 girls that live in his apartment. Randy, Candy. Wait, what is it? Randy, Candy, and Bambi, I think.
Yes.
And so this is one of them.
Don't ask me. I never remember.
Yeah. So this is one of them. They're all beautiful, of course. This is one of them. And this is the issue, I think, where we find out for the first time that she's a kid. And so the Santa Claus has got this kid on his lap, and he's kind of like, oh, what do you want for Christmas? Oh, and the kid makes the mistake of admitting what the mother has at home. And so Santa Claus is like, oh, really? What's your address again? And he's like writing it down in his notebook as the kid's walking away. So then we cut over to Peter Parker, who's home. Now he makes a call to Harry Osborn. Same thing happens, miscommunication, can't hear what he's saying because the kid is crying. So he doesn't get to have Christmas dinner with him either. Calls Mary Jane. Mary Jane's taking a bath. Peter Parker gets the voice message machine, doesn't leave a message. And then we also find out that Mary Jane does have plans to be with Aunt May and her mother Anna, but Peter Parker doesn't know about that, so it's implied that he's not going to see them. Then we cut over to Black Cat, who is decided that she's going to go out for a night on the town, and she ends up running into these thieves that have broken into a store. She beats up the thieves, but then decides to steal 2 mink coats anyway, but then feels guilty about it, so then she gives them away to these 2 homeless women. And then we cut over to my favorite scene in the entire 1980s decade. We have Peter Parker, who is home alone on Christmas Eve, and he pours himself 2 drinks, and he's talking, and he's like, well, at least you're here. The only one who never abandons me, even when I'd rather never see you again. I don't mind being lonely, because with you, I'm never alone. And we cut over and we see that he's actually talking to his black costume. And he's like, you know, you were alive once, but then so was I. Merry Christmas. Drink it up. It'll get warm. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, I actually met Peter David and I told him how much I love that scene. He was indifferent. But anyway.
He didn't remember writing
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So then we cut over to Robbie Robertson talking to his son. And then we find out that his son is coming home and has been secretly married to a white girl. And we don't know what's going to happen. The drama, guess who's coming to dinner type thing. That's going to probably come up in the next few issues. And then now we cut over to the climax of the issue. We cut over to Bambi asleep in the sexiest night clothing I've ever seen in my life. Just like every other woman in this issue, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, we will. So she wakes up and finds Santa Claus in her kitchen stealing her, looks like a TV and I don't know what else. Points a gun at her, and she actually is pretending to talk to him, but is like, a dream, that's it, I'm dreaming. Come on, Bambi, wake up. Wake up, Bambi, wake up. Which is actually ends up waking up Peter Parker, who's in the apartment directly next to her. So he has time to change into Spider-Man, crash through the window, and then just as that's happening, the kid comes in, and then then that's one of the other roommates is there. Santa Claus ends up running away, then the landlady's there, Spider-Man pushes her out of the way, chases after the bad guy. Then the evil Santa Claus, this is an odd scene, runs out to the roof, and he's just about to get away, but then we see another person dressed up as Santa Claus, and they're like, last year it was slasher films, now it's this. I'm not laughing. Then by the time Spider-Man gets up there, they're both gone. What happened? We don't know, right? So then we find out, so then Joy Mercado sends Peter Parker to cover this story about this spider or this Santa Claus impersonator that's been caught, and now he's being forced by this cop to give away, is it all the gifts that he stole or no? What is he giving away?
It's real handmade toys.
Right. Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's giving away all these toys, handmade wooden toys, stuffed animals, beautiful. And so, where do these gifts come from, right? So then the cop is like, yeah, by the way, the impersonator's like, as proof, here's a message a friend asked me to pass on to you. So he gives it to Peter Parker. Peter Parker opens it up and it says, call your aunt. So then we cut to the second last scene of the book, and we see that now Peter Parker is with Aunt May and Aunt Anna and Mary Jane, and they have a happy ending. So it's implied that it was the real Santa Claus that was on the roof that gave Peter the note and forced this guy to give away all of Santa's handmade toys. Then we cut away to this, again, another subplot of people who are scoping out Aunt May's house, and one of them's got a knife, and as we see Peter and everybody talking, one of the bad guys says to the other, forget it, man, we'll do it another day. He won't get away. So that subplot will also come to fruition in a future issue. The end. So this was by Peter David, Mark Beachum, and Pat Redding on art.
Oh, good. Now I know who to beat up.
So why don't we start with you, Becca? Let's talk about the art on this issue. I thought it was great, but I have some reservations, which I'm sure you do too. Why don't you tell us what you thought of the art?
You don't get to make a wholesome Christmas feel-good story and also a porn. You don't get to do both. I know some people, and also a pedophile comment. Like you can't do all of them. You have to pick one.
Okay. We should have picked one or the other. Gotcha.
Literally starts off and the guy who's robbing the woman is like, what's there, a model convention going on around here? I'm like, yeah, man, what the hell? What's going on? Why are all these women drawn like they're posing for
A fashion.
sexy pictures on top of a car?
Right.
When they're just walking down the road.
Uh-huh.
There are more butts in this issue, women's butts, than there are Spider-Man butts. And that's not acceptable.
There's a lot of butts.
Also, I think you know what panel I'm going to talk about.
Oh, I'm really glad. I've been wanting to talk about it. I hope.
What the ever-loving hell is this?
Which one?
Why are all of her bones broken?
Oh.
And why is she trying to suffocate her leg off with the
Her
shower
leg is
head?
MJ's leg is 11 and a half feet.
Yeah. And then
yeah.
What was who taught anatomy?
So style icon Mary Jane, green bathtub, black tile, is tangled in this shower head that is also 50 feet long.
Yep. That's a good point.
Her torso makes no sense. You gotta cover the ladies with your foot, but like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Both of her arms, I think, are broken backwards. Like they look like they're not, like the one is okay, but the other one holding her head, it's got to be some sort of like the proportions aren't right.
Mm-hmm.
Like the legs are definitely, and then she gets out and covers herself in maybe the smallest hand towel.
It's like a face cloth, yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, nobody does laundry in this universe, so like that's all she's got left, right? I mean, you're home alone, why even bother? And she wraps her hair for 2 seconds. Then immediately after, Felicia Hardy is also just casually in a t-shirt, sitting. In the lowest V-neck t-shirt. This story's about Santa Claus.
Yes.
I just want to point that out.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's a feel-good Christmas story. Continue.
About how Santa is real.
Right.
Why does Bambi look like she is enjoying her evening maybe too much?
It's the only thing that's real.
Wait.
It's the only thing that's real in this issue.
Wait, oh geez, you mean on page Digital 18 when she's in bed?
Yeah, it says, Bambi was restless and went through the door served only to waken our heroine more. She's restless? You could just say she's horny. Like, we get it.
Yeah.
Because you drew it like this.
Good point.
Why is she in her workout, like she's at, like this is her 80s gym aerobics outfit.
Right.
Like, you can wear whatever you want, ma'am. It's your own house. I just have a lot of questions about how you were portrayed.
Okay, I just gotta say one thing quickly. I read this as a kid. I actually think Mark Beachum is an incredible artist. I think Pat Redding is a great inker. I'm not familiar with Pat Redding. On one level, this art is really good, and the storytelling's better than I remember it to be. However, while I did think it was good artwork when I was 13, as I got older, I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous the way these women are drawn. So I'll definitely say this is the kind of art that, like, certain people I know, certain comic book fans I know, think, this is how all comic book art should be. But no, it actually shouldn't. It should be more like Web of Spider-Man. The way that, like, again, this guy is technically a good artist, but the way that these women are drawn is outrageous. It's ridiculous. Andrew, what do you think of the art?
I've read a lot of comics.
Uh-huh.
A lot of comics. And it was really weird to, in this Christmas issue, be like, is this the most sexualized comic I've ever read? Ever? Like, when I got to the Mary Jane in the Tub panel, I was just like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Outside of all of any form of woman's body, the art is pretty good.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of panels that don't have some form of half-naked woman on it, so it's kind of hard to, coloring's good, all that fun, all that fun stuff. So art-wise, yes, I know that technically there's a good artist in there, but he was drawing with one hand. So, yeah, it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying you can't draw sexy ladies. I love sexy ladies. I love drawings of sexy ladies. But it's a Christmas story.
What about the shot looking straight up Black Cat's ass when she's like about to attack those guys, you know?
Oh my. Yeah.
It gave me Spider-Woman, what was that guy's name?
Oh,
Flashbacks?
Milo, whatever his name was, yes.
Yeah, who cares? Irrelevant.
Uh-huh.
Man. Yeah, I was like, what? Santa's real and Peter's sad because he has nowhere to go on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Also, check out her fucking ass. Yeah!
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm getting whiplash.
It was
From like, go ahead, sorry.
So do you think are these notes, like, are they intentionally being like, you really got to sex this up? Like, how does this many sexy ladies get in here?
I think it's just, and I noticed this, like Mark Beachum, this is how he always draws women. So I think it's just, this is his thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think he did many comics. I don't think he probably went on to do like whatever, fashion magazines, or I don't know what someone like with this skill set.
He's over working for like Zenoscope.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. But yeah, again, this goes back to what we said about like Web of Spider-Man is a classic. That's classic comic book art. John Romita Sr.'s classic comic book art. This is more like a good illustrator, but not necessarily suited for a comic book, especially one about Christmas. But
we're moving. Like again, it is definitely moving more towards modern comic book art. It's just not quite there yet. It's kind of like a weird contrast between new and old.
Right.
That said, I loved this issue. Like in general, art aside, I loved this issue.
Let's talk about the story, Andrew. Why did you know I love it? Why did you love this issue?
Because I knew about the Parker talking to his suit alone on Christmas scene.
Really?
I was so excited. Yeah, I mean, it pops up every now and then, people post about it or whatever. So I had read that scene a million times, and I've always loved it. And I was so excited when I started to realize that that's what was going to happen in this issue, because I'd never read the full issue before. So I was very excited just to see that, because that scene is amazing, and it's like, it's up there with like one of my favorite Spider-Man moments ever. Like, it's just such a good Peter Parker moment. It really captures sad sack Parker really well, and I was really excited about that. That scene alone made me overlook a lot of things, that I didn't necessarily love.
Right.
And I do want to ask this, as more involved in this, what is the Marvel Universe's relationship with Santa Claus? Do they have a stance on Santa?
He is a real mystical being.
Like, does he appear from time to time? Is this a... Yep. Yes, I love it.
But
I think it happens in both Marvel and DC. They both have a Santa that's real.
Yeah, like in an issue of Superman that I reviewed on Flea Market Fantasy, Superman meets Santa Claus. And it's awesome. But at the end of the issue, it's kind of implied, it could have been his imagination, but then he's got the toy. Oh, look, like one of those. But it's sort of like never canon, but it's definitely hinted that it's real, that he's real. So
I don't want to sour the issue. At the beginning of the issue, when like Parker's like, "Oh, this guy stole this Christmas gift," and he's like, "Oh, please, you gotta let me go, man. I'm stealing this for my mom. She's really sick and all that." And Parker is like, "I can't let this guy go." And I'm like,
"Wait a
really?
minute.
This guy you won't let go?"
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same writer. That's what's crazy. Yeah. Ugh.
Ugh or ack, indeed.
Yeah. So
I just looked it up. Santa Claus is a mutant.
Wonderful. That is exactly
that explains
what I
everything.
to know. Yep.
Becca, did you like the story?
Okay. I have trouble removing my extreme hyper feminist opinions
No.
from context.
Really?
Yeah, me.
Oh.
I know, crazy. So it was a difficult one to get through because I had to go as I'm reading things. Go, oh, there's another woman's ass. Cool. Like it takes me out of it, right? I wish that wasn't there so I could enjoy this more. I wish it was more of just an entire issue of Peter Parker being sad that he's alone on Christmas, even though the entire universe is showing him that he's not alone. I love that juxtaposition of him talking to the suit when in reality there's so many people that want to be with Peter on Christmas. But I can't enjoy that. Because I'm just casually scrolling through, and the first page we got a woman dressed like a supermodel and one woman's ass, and then the next page, another woman's ass. And then there's Spider-Man, and then there's a woman's ass, and then there's Joy's ass, a named woman. No Aunt May. Aunt May doesn't get a butt shot. That's fine for her.
Damn.
And then the abusive father. Happy Christmas time. Then there's Bambi's ass. And then you can kind of see Liz's ass in the background when he's talking to Harry. So I'm counting that. And then there's the Mary Jane in the bathtub page.
And then also, she's topless. Like, she's just putting her bra on.
I mean, she does have a baby.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them that. Like, maybe she probably, you know, I don't know how many young new mothers you know, but a lot of times you just don't have the time for tops. So that one I'll give them. But she is sticking her ass out towards the viewer. And then there's the whole Mary Jane page. And then there's the black cat page and another black cat page, and you can see right up her butthole. You see right up her butthole. And then there's the nice page where Peter's talking to the suit. And then there's the page with Robbie and his son. And even in that page, there's a woman's butt.
Yep. Just women posing, yep.
Yep.
And then there's Bambi in her bed. And then there's all of the girls. And then there's Santa. And then there's Santa, and then there's a knife, and it's over. So, like, there's, like, 4 pages in this entire comic that doesn't show a woman's ass prominently.
4 whole pages?
So, essentially, yeah, if you would have just pulled those shots out, the art would have been fine, right? Maybe.
I mean, they're drawn well. They're hot women. But it's a story about Peter being sad on Christmas.
Right.
I wish it was just that. This comic makes me feel icky.
Okay, so I would absolutely recommend this. This is one of my favorite issues of Spider-Man.
Oh, I wonder why.
Ever. Not because of the art, although the art is good.
No.
It's because of the Christmas story, and that's what I told Peter David when I met him. Andrew.
And he was like, yeah, sure, buddy.
He was like, yeah, whatever. Andrew, would you recommend this issue?
Yes, with all of the caveats that Becca mentioned. Yes for Christmas Spider-Man. No for anybody's self-worth.
Okay. Bex Luthor, do you recommend it?
The introspective of Peter Parker with his suit. That page is definitely, like, I've seen it all over the internet. It pops up every so often. Had no clue it came from this issue. Wouldn't know at all. And that's fine. You don't even need the context. Just enjoy that page for what it is.
Right.
Oof. That Mary Jane bathtub scene. Oof. It's just a big oof and a big yikes for me. It's going to be like 10 out of 10 yikes.
I think that one's been cited a lot too, right? Like, I've seen that floated around a lot. Yeah.
It is hilarious.
Her legs are so long.
It is hilarious. Like, just to think about, like, the proportions of that person standing up is like this. We're into like Slenderman territory.
Oh, she's Slenderman. That'd be dope.
So anyway,
but the Parker talking to the suit, just absolutely top notch.
Right. I agree 100%.
God, it must have been hard to read comic books as a woman in the 80s. Shit.
That's probably why most of them didn't, right?
They did. They just didn't tell you.
Oh, ooh, tragic twist ending to that story. But anyway,
Not you specifically, just men in general.
oh, okay.
Because then they'd have the same argument I've had to have with every male comic book nerd that I run into, unfortunately, at the comic shop. It's like, oh, it's the integrity of the art. That's why you can see her butthole. Shut up. You know what? I don't want to talk to you.
That would have been me back then too. But anyway, okay. So now we're gonna end on a.
That's the podcast.
Yeah, not quite. We still have one more issue, the last issue of Secret Wars 2, and then we never have to talk about it again. Secret Wars 2, number 9. I did not read. Okay, here's the thing. Every week I tell people, if you really don't want to read it, skip to the Spidey cameo. I tried to read this issue. I really was like, okay, you know what? The opening page is kind of cool. I got to page 2 and I saw that text. And I'm like, I am not reading this. Actually, page 3. Andrew, tell us about your experience trying to read this issue.
Ditto. It was literally, I was like, okay, if my first time on the podcast, I'm gonna try to, I'm not gonna phone this one in. And then I got to that, and I just kind of like, my first instinct was like, ooh, bright and colorful, and then I was just like, oh my god, it's like this 30-page comic is gonna take me a solid 3 hours to read through this first page of text.
No, thank you. Yeah. And that's the thing is, I've read it before, and I keep thinking if I reread it, it's kind of like the Star Wars prequels. I keep rewatching them, hoping they'll get better, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But this series does not get any better.
There are redeeming qualities of the prequels.
Oh yeah.
There was one of the best lightsaber fights of all time in the first movie. There's no redeeming qualities in Secret Wars 2.
That's true.
There's no Ewan McGregor being a detective, getting drinks in bars in this one.
That's right. Damn it. I wish there was. That's another podcast, though. But anyway.
I'll talk about Ewan McGregor being hot all day.
So...
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get in on that.
Just a handsome man.
He's a handsome man.
Oh, and
charming man.
The TV show is coming, but again, trust me, we'll be podcasting about that. But anyway, let's talk about Secret Wars.
They cast Ewan McGregor as the Beyonder.
Yeah, there you go. Who would they cast as the Beyonder if they were to do a movie?
A lump of clay. I don't know. Dirt block. Me? Anybody. Doesn't matter. Who's the whitest guy you know?
I'm trying to think here. If it was the 80s, it'd be like Rob Lowe or somebody. But if it was now, I don't know who it would be.
Some TikTok star.
Yeah, there you go.
Noah Centineo is my pick.
Justin Bieber. Let's get
Justin
Bieber.
I'd love that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about this issue. So
I'm just like, oh man, Justin Bieber.
So this is the issue where the Avengers and everyone else kill a baby. How they get to that point is a little complicated, but we didn't read the issue.
And you don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. So basically, I from what I've read 5 times, the Beyonder thinks he's figured out. Oh, he's going to destroy the universe. But then he decides to create this machine where he impregnates, becomes his own father, then comes back as a baby, and then he's happy for like 2 seconds, but then he's like, he gets up, freaks out, and he's like, oh, screw this, I'm gonna go back to my other body. And it says here, with insane desperation, he plunges his hands into the semi-permeable membrane of the base of the vessel, and he basically turns back into the other Beyonder. So I don't know why. He's like, oh, what a rush. It was awesome, terrifying, exhilarating. I was aging. Each breath seemed like an event. Each second was unique. It was unbearable. And yet, now the oppressive sameness of every moment in this form is unbearable. I've got to try it again. So then he does the same thing again. For the second time, he turns himself into a baby and gets born again. Then he's like, oh, I'm going to go for a run and get out of breath. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to stick my hand in a fire like anyone would do, right? Then Mephisto takes the opportunity to materialize, and Mephisto starts toying with him, like spitting maggots out of his mouth and covering with maggots. And, he's the one that burns his hand completely off. But then what happens? So then he somehow is able to reform his old body again. I don't know. I don't get how. Then the Avengers and everyone else shows up. They're debating what to do, talking back and forth. And then I'm looking through this issue. I have no idea what's going on. But then basically the Beyonder... Oh, then the Molecule Man shows up and he actually wants to kill the Beyonder. The Beyonder fires off some energy thing that is so powerful that it reaches the end of infinity, which, by the way, even if it was traveling at the speed of light, would take, 1 trillion years to do. But that's okay. We'll ignore that. So...
Yeah, the science is off.
The science is off in that one scene. So then all the superheroes, he makes the superheroes disappear. He turns himself back into a baby for the third time. And then everyone comes back and they're trying to debate what to do. And basically a bunch of people are on the side of killing the baby, including Spider-Man.
Yep.
And Reed Richards, I believe, is the only one that's against the idea of killing the baby because they got to see if they can reason with him. So then Molecule Man is like, screw that. He shoots a bolt at the machine blows up, and then the universe blinks out of existence for a second, I think, and then it's back. And then the Silver Surfer picks up the corpse of the dead baby, and he's like, dead, the baby's dead. And Sue Storm's like, oh, Reed. And they all walk away. And then basically Captain America's like, Mr. Reese, I'd like a word with you, please. It doesn't take Reed Richards to figure out that you somehow prevented the ultimate end of everything. Thanks. Though I wish there'd been another way. And then we get this little epilogue where we find out that the destruction of the Beyonder poked another hole in the universe and created this other universe with its own Adam and Eve. And that's pretty much it. And you think it's the end, but then it says, it's not quite over yet. The astounding epilogue to this, the most cosmic saga of all, takes place in Avengers number 266, on sale January. Do not miss, and the war's desolation. And that's the issue.
You can suck a dick. I'm missing it so much.
So, Andrew, because this is your first issue of Secret Wars 2, I want to know what you thought of this one.
Well, the 6.5 panels of this that I read were, I don't know. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I enjoyed your recap of it there because I was like, is that what was going on?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm flipping through this now, and I'm just like, what?
It's not. We talked about how the Web of Spider-Man, you could tell what was going on just by looking at the art. This issue, not so much.
No, not at all. Not at all. Oh, man. Kind of weird that Reed Richards is the only one who's like, I don't want to kill the baby. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Reed Richards, you would think would be like number one and like, let's, who's got a gun? You got a gun? I got a gun. Let's shoot this baby.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's always Reed who's like, no, but the scientific preservation of whatever this entity that will kill us all, we have to preserve it. And everyone's like, no.
Yeah, it's true. He probably wanted to study the baby.
He just wants to study. He does not care a shit about this baby's right to live. He wants to poke it and prod it and see how much universe he can make for himself. Spoiler alert, Reed. You make a son that does that, so it's fine. But, like, this guy's gonna erase existence. You have to kill a baby. I'm sorry, Captain America, but it's not a real baby. It's the Beyonder.
Yeah, recreated himself.
Just looks like a baby.
Like, it's definitely trying to do, like, the classic, like, would you kill Hitler type thing.
Yes.
But in this case, Hitler continuously turns himself back into a baby and keeps giving people more chances to do it.
You didn't get it that time? 1 second. I'm going to jump in one more time. Yeah.
This is exhilarating.
Yeah.
We could talk about Spider-Man. He's there.
Oh, yeah, he is. Okay.
He's in his black suit, and I didn't even get an explanation if his red suit was dirty or not.
Good point.
0 out of 10. I had to scroll up and down this issue. I was like, where does Peter come from?
He's just there.
And yeah, he's just there.
He's just there.
It's...
Yeah. I thought I had missed because I was scrolling to where you told me to go, and I was like, no, he's already here. I must have missed where he showed up, and I kept going back, and I was like, no, he's not there. He's just
because I was going to say, we know the previous issue, he's just in his apartment, because the panel that we had to review last week was him in his apartment. That was it. So he was just in his apartment.
Yeah.
I refuse. This continuity sucks. I hate Secret Wars.
It's crap. And
So this is the end of the Secret Wars. So this is Secret Wars 2, right?
so
Electric Boogaloo.
yeah, so Secret Wars 1, the Beyonder's just in disembodied voice. He transports all the heroes to the Beyonder world, the battle world.
That's the battle world.
That's the battle world. They all fight.
Symbiote,
a bunch of all that stuff happens. Then they all go back. And then this one is where the Beyonder takes human form. He comes to Earth. He interferes with all the Marvel superheroes. They have all these crossovers, and that's it. And then it ends. And it's crap. And then Jim Shooter got fired. He was the editor-in-chief for 9 years. And then pretty much after this, his career was over. And now he's become an industry pariah, and everyone hates him. But anyway.
I kind of hate him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but
He also wrote the infamous story where Carol Danvers gets raped by an alien. You ever hear about that story, Andrew?
And then births the alien.
no.
So her son is the father, and it's retconned to filth, but it stained my childhood because Carol Danvers is my favorite comic book character. So I was like, ooh, Carol Danvers. And I was like, oh, I'm 8.
Yeah.
This is
perfect for a kid's story, yeah.
Wasn't prepared for an alien rape baby.
Mm-hmm.
that is him reincarnated. Like, it's also...
Yeah, it's like a motif with Jim Shooter of people becoming their own parents and raping and murdering. It's ridiculous, but... Maybe
he hates women.
Oh.
Because, like... None of these men, like, the Beyonder doesn't need a woman to become a baby. He can do it himself, like a real man.
My favorite Jim Shooter motif is, or whatever, is when he has men call women stupid to their face while dating them. And he's done it several times throughout his comics career. It's hilarious. You should.
It's like men on Reddit. They're like, why don't I have a girlfriend? Right. They're all dumb sluts.
Yeah, that's exactly...
Dunno, man.
That is exactly
crazy.
Jim Shooter. Yep. Anyway.
Oh wow, these are special. Special issues.
Hated this more than the first Secret Wars. By a long
shot.
By
yeah.
a lot.
The first one is at least passable.
The first one, at least, is about the characters getting transported to Battle World and then their relationships with each other. It's dumb and bad, but it's about that.
Right.
What the hell is Secret Wars 2 about?
No one knows.
It's about a guy coming to Earth and trying to realize his purpose. And then he's a baby, then he's an adult, then he's a baby, then he's an adult, then he doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, again, if Jim Shooter was not his own boss, someone else might have said, hey, maybe you want to refine these ideas, trim down some of the dialogue. There could have been a good story in there, but there's just too much crap to read through. And even the fact that all of us, without consulting each other, all did the same thing, which is just skip the entire issue. I think it kind of proves that it didn't do what it was supposed to do, right? Like, this is, like, unreadable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not good. It's just not good. It's just, it just, and there's it's sad that it's been going on this long, but it's just like, it's Marvel still loses himself in these like terrible crossover events.
Right.
Like, because they're so overarching and so epic, almost never make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or ever have any sort of consistency to them.
Right.
Like, presumably this was going across several titles, not just Spider-Man and Avengers. Like, it would have been on everything.
Every title.
The chances of it being good on any of those is probably pretty slim.
Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, I remember reading, like, Inferno. Remember, did you ever read Inferno? It was pretty good. It was a good cross. It was like if you want to talk about not limited series, but crossovers that happened only in the books themselves, it would have been Mutant Massacre, then Fall of the Mutants, then Inferno. And I remember when I was reading those as a kid, I'm like, this is the best story ever written. And then I'd read it, and it'd build up and build up. And usually when I got to the end, it was always a disappointment. It was like a summer blockbuster, right? Like, you build up and build up and build up, and then the ending is always a letdown. But in Secret Wars 2, even the build up wasn't good. The whole thing was a letdown,
I can't believe this is what anything built to.
Yeah, this was...
This guy was like, I'm gonna babyfy myself.
Yeah, exactly. What? But even go ahead, Becca.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's such a like a slap in the face to everybody who was reading comics at the time. Like when I was a kid and I've got $5 a month to spend on comics and I want to spend it on my favorite heroes, I have no idea what the hell's going on because I can't afford to buy 20 issues this month.
Yeah.
I'm 8.
And that's the thing is, when I was a kid, I thought crossovers were exciting, but now I boycott them just on principle. Like I remember I was buying Doctor Strange by, I think it was Jason Aaron. And after like 8 issues, they're like, oh, now you have to read Magic Wars #1 to find out how the story ends. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. Not only am I not buying Magic Wars, I'm not buying Doctor Strange. Forget it, I just won't fall for it. So,
yeah, even I was reading Aaron's Thor run, and like they definitely made him be like, and Thor's gonna have to be in a couple of giant events in the middle of this,
right?
And you can tell that like it just loses all steam, when that happens.
100%, yeah. And I mean, it's funny because, Andrew, you talked about like, oh, I remember seeing the Peter Parker drinking with himself scene. And, when you're getting into comics, you always hear about these classic stories like Death of Gwen Stacy or Dark Phoenix or whatever it may be. I don't think a single one of those classic stories ever happened in a big crossover. I mean, other than the death of Supergirl and Crisis and Spider-Man getting his new costume, did these big crossovers ever produce anything that's really stood the test of time? I don't think so. That's just my theory.
I'm racking my brain.
Like
not coming up with much.
Usually there's stories that are
Skrull invasion?
What's that?
Yeah.
Like the
Skrull
invasion?
The Skrulls, yeah, that did have.
Oh, you mean like Secret Invasion?
Yeah, Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't think of the name of it's too many secrets.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't personally like
Secret
that
War, Secret
story,
Invasion.
but yeah, I guess it had far-reaching effects.
I think maybe I also have nostalgia for it because it came out when I was like just starting to read stuff like that.
Right.
But maybe not. Maybe I go back and have the same feelings about it as I would about these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the mileage varies on Civil War in general, but especially with how much looking back, you're like, wow, Civil War was a lot more consistent than a lot of these things were. So I guess the first Civil War was mostly decent.
Yeah, Civil War was definitely well written. I think my biggest problem, and actually David Finch talked about this when he came on our show 14 years ago. He said, that was the peak. He said he was really annoyed that they did so many big things knowing that they'd be retconned because if you remember, One More Day happened right after that. And like in Civil War #2, Spider-Man reveals his identity to the world. And it's a big deal. And like, oh my God, this is an important event. But then like 6 months later, it was retconned by One More Day. And they knew they were going to do that, right? So it really, going back and reading Civil War, now you're like, oh, well, that lasted 3 months or 6 months. So that was pointless, And then after Civil War, Captain America gets assassinated, but he's back within 6 months. So
assassinated, isn't it a time displaced bullet?
Yeah,
I hate that one.
That was ridiculous.
That one.
Right. So
this is why people beat us up in high school for liking this shit. This kind of stuff. This is why the jocks are like, freaking comic book nerd, and like pound us and put us into lockers because they're like, this is what comic books are, and you have to be like, no, some of it's good, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look,
and the worst thing about Cap's like death there is like it comes like towards the tail end of like Brubaker's like amazing Captain America run.
It was mid.
And then
it was mid because
it was mid, yeah. And then clearly all of these things are like Marvel being like, you're the Captain America now.
Like, right. And that's the thing is because like Winter Soldier by Brubaker was a great story.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did the Death of Captain America, and it was good. But then it's like he just started spinning his wheels. He's like, okay, what can I do now? And then it just dragged out. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And again, I can understand. I'm always defending new comics, but then when it's like Becca said, it's like then when you bring up stuff like this, you're like, maybe I shouldn't be reading Marvel and DC. Like this is pretty ridiculous. Like to defend this stuff sometimes. But what are you gonna do, right?
There's a lot of stuff right now that I'm reading that's actually pretty good. And a lot of it is not like the main storyline of universe's stuff. Like, I'm reading about like Harley Quinn's side story to become not a bad person anymore, and like her and Poison Ivy's ex-girlfriend teaming up. Like, the little things that are happening.
Is that
the not all-encompassing things?
What's that happening?
Is that Black Label?
I can't remember the name of it. I think some of it is happening in like the Batman stuff that's going on, but there's like that Harley Quinn solo run right now where she's got like the cute outfit. And I just read what was it called? Catwoman Soul Stealer, which is like a graphic novel. That was really good.
I'd read that. That sounds cool.
Well, and also let's take this opportunity to point out that last year or this year, DC did a revival of the animated tie-in, like the Batman the Animated Series tie-in comic. So they brought back, like, I think it was Bruce Timm and Ty Templeton, and it was there. Yeah, I don't know if you have it, but it was great.
I do.
Yeah, like, again, it's not a masterpiece, but hey, if you want to read a self-contained story, right? Nice, clean art, clean writing. It's great stuff. And I bought them all digitally, and I think it's only maybe $7.
It was digital exclusive, and then they started releasing them paperwork.
Yeah.
It's somewhere.
Yeah, but absolutely recommended, Becca, if you haven't read that.
Yeah, I like the stuff that's self-contained, and I think there is a little bit more of that, especially compared to like what we're reading right now, which is like, don't forget, like, remember last week when it was like, don't forget to read Web of number this, amazing, number this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to read all that. Like, I like the is this the book? I can read this book and I could pick it up next month and then continues the story.
I would say almost all of Tom King's Batman run is both worth reading and also self-contained.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with Tom King's Batman run. It's so good. I mean, it's done. I mean, it's not done because now he's finishing it in Batman Catwoman that he's doing right now on Black Label. But like, yeah.
See, now, okay, let's do a little side quest here. So I loved Division, which I'm sure you read. I loved it. And then I read Mr. Miracle, which I loved, but it was a little bit confusing. I don't remember where Batman came, but in that chronology, but I remember reading the first couple issues, but I could not get into it.
Oh, his Batman run?
Yeah.
I would say the first... He really hits his stride maybe around issue 10.
Okay.
And then it maintains real consistency after that. The first arc is like he introduces like Gotham Girl.
Right.
He does falter kind of right off the bat. But after that, like each issue or like each arc in King's Batman run for the majority of it focuses pretty strongly on like a classic villain.
Okay. And
like kind of attempts to like sort of get into their psychology a little.
Sure.
Like he does some really cool stuff with he has a really good Poison Ivy arc where like Ivy's a villain again and like, Batman can't figure it out and like basically Batman's just like, I'm calling Harley Quinn because she's the only one who's going to be able to talk to Ivy. And like it's all really, really good. I love it.
Well, that's the thing. I trust him. Like, again, Vision is like my favorite Marvel comic in 15 years. So I know he's capable of it, but like I also didn't like Heroes in Crisis. Did you read that?
No, I have it on order.
Yeah.
So he did all his Marvel stuff, and then he went over to DC. So the DC is his most recent stuff. He did over on Marvel. Yeah, he did Vision, Mr. Miracle. He did. Oh God.
Well, that's DC, but at Marvel he did Vision, and what else? I don't think he did much else, did he? Maybe one other book.
You're right.
Yeah.
Mr. Miracle was of course.
I don't remember what he did at Marvel, but I know he did Omega Men.
You're right.
Yeah.
Omega Men. And
and that was DC. Yeah.
Men. That was DC as well. Omega Men's okay.
Yeah. But then Becca, I gave you Heroes in Crisis because I didn't like it. Did you like it?
No.
Exactly. Like
it's not the reason I haven't read it is because it's really not well regarded. So I'm like, all right, I'm staying away.
I didn't like the art. And I'm not a big fan of when of just how people treat Poison Ivy sometimes. It's like, this woman is an object. She will be my plot device. Okay. I don't know. Just, ugh.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's 2021. There's a lot of good female representation in comics. Not enough, but a lot. So, like, I don't have time for anything that's not that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like, 8-year-old Rebecca was just so desperate for any girls in comic books that she'd take whatever she can get. Now. No,
Yeah.
I am not reading about Kyle Rayner's fridged girlfriend. Nuh-uh.
All right.
But that's because I've grown as a person.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, there's definitely, when you've read as many comics as we have, you can pretty much judge what something's going to be like within the first few pages. And that's why we all skipped Secret Wars 2, right? We knew this is not going to be good. This is not going to pick up. It's not going to recover. But anyway.
It was also hard to read.
Yeah. Again, it's like Sal Buscema's art pulls you in and Alan Milgram's art pushes you out. Jim Shooter's writing pushes you out. It makes you not want to read it. But anyway.
Yeah. I can't imagine who it's for. Like, none of these issues, like, we've definitely long gone past writing for kids. Like, by the time we get to the 80s. Because it's all so mealy-mouthed and, like, it takes so long to get to the point that I'm like, okay, we were nerds, so we would have read it. But, like, your average kid picking up, like, Web of Spider-Man, he's going to be like, what the hell's going on here? Like,
yes, exactly.
Punch somebody.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm reading for my leisure. This should be fun and enjoyable. And if it's a chore, I'll just go actually clean my kitchen that I haven't been doing for the last 5 days.
Right.
Like,
that's the thing is, and if it's not like you can't have a lot of text, like Alan Moore has a lot of text, but at least it's good, right? It's all there for a reason. But even like when we had Ted Woods on our show, he's a comic book artist, and we gave him an issue of Defenders, and he's like, yeah, I read like 2 pages, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna skim read this one. Like, none of us, it's like, even when it's homework, we're like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to read this issue. Our time is too precious,
Yeah, in my own comic writing, like, it's something I'm very, very conscious of. Like, I constantly challenge myself to write less.
Right.
and try to remember comics are a visual medium and, like, let my artists do a lot of the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish a lot of these comics would do that.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to wrap up on that note. Andrew, thank you for joining us. We definitely want to have you back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a lot of
fun. All right.
I
probably not as fun as talking about 80s sitcoms, but we did our best, right? Usually Josh does the wrap up. I found out many things in the last week or two. I found out iTunes hasn't existed since 2017, so we're not on iTunes. We are on Apple Podcasts, okay?
Whenever you said iTunes, I just assumed you meant Apple Podcasts, but you didn't know that wasn't two different things.
Yeah, I didn't know. We also have been telling people for 93 episodes to find us on Stitcher. We got approved for Stitcher today, so starting today you can find us on Stitcher, so we're doing really good. But you can definitely find us on, where else?
You're on
Twitter.
You're on
Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, the Comic Book Syndicate website. So that's where you can find us. Next week, we'll have a special episode talking about the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s, the X-Men crossover, with special guest Harvey Brent. So thank you again, Andrew. Thank you, Bex Luthor. And until next Monday, Spider Friends, go for it!